Welcome to The Founder's Mind, a podcast powered by the Kadar Group. This is your host, Adam Muchler. Before we kick off the conversation with Tessa and Tony, if you've had a chance to listen to some recent episodes, you may have already heard, we're bringing on a sponsor for the show, and we couldn't be more excited. We're currently producing Season 2, sponsored by Upside Business Travel. More on all of this soon. For now, on this episode, we have Tessa and Tony, a father-daughter duo representing the family behind the DC institutions Baked and Wired, A Baked Joint, and La Betty. We chat about the importance of community, how to intentionally create space for gathering, and avoiding the pitfall of trying to recreate a hit by focusing on different concepts with each new endeavor. Listen in. I am here at La Betty with Tessa and Tony, the founders, owners of a food empire that I admire in DC. Welcome, Tony and Tessa, to The Founder's Mind.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Very excited to chat with you all. And I'd love to hear about where we are, but also, A Baked Joint, Baked and Wired, and I'm going geographically from east to west here. But a little bit about the origin story and what you all are cooking up, literally.
Wow, big question. Well, I'll start and I'll let Tessa sort of take it from there. She's more eloquent than I am. We started 18 years ago, almost 19, at Baked and Wired. It was a small thing. We weren't never in our wildest dreams that we think that it would turn out to be what it has turned out to be. And we just have had, a really good time with it. We had baked for, maybe 12, 13 years before we opened the second location. And now we have Betty.
Yeah.
So
a whole new world.
A whole new world, yeah. And our goal was always to sort of have different concepts, right? I mean, we didn't want to get bored with doing the same thing in another location and taking away from, the inherent personality that each location develops, right? It's sort of hard to replicate. Sequels are usually not as good as the first one. And that's been our mindset, is to have the new concepts develop that are sort of tied into the original concept, but not the same thing.
That's awesome. And it seems like, and I'm just going off a Baked Joint, you've got lines on K Street and you've got lines in Georgetown. So there are things happening.
Yeah, there are things happening. I think, like he was saying, we've always remained really true to who we are. And that's really like who we are as a family and our personality, and really expressing that through the stores, even when someone says that might not be a good idea, or why are you doing this, or you should do this. Really, I think staying true to the vision and expressing that to our team. I mean, we would not have these locations and these lines at the door if, of course, this stuff tastes really good. And we have a great bakery team who's really committed, and they put a lot of love into small batching everything. But, people at the store actually selling the goods. So we really, I think what's made it so cool to see, and I think what people are drawn to as well, is it feels very authentic in there, and that's our staff being able to self-express themselves in a lot of ways. They play their own music, they wear their own clothes. I mean, truly our dress code rule is just wear closed-toe shoes, please.
No tank tops for the guys.
Yeah, no armpit coming out.
No, we don't need to see that.
No armpits, hair coming out. That's it. And I think that's what we've really tried to maintain throughout all 3 locations, is just really that authentic, cozy, personal vibe that, while it's expressing individuality in a lot of ways, that also fosters community, because people really feel like they're coming from all types of walk, and there's someone they can relate to on that floor, and they feel like they're part of this world too.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think one of the things, so I do executive coaching and I work with a lot of corporations, but there's all this talk about like bringing yourself to work, being your authentic self, and like, what does that mean for a corporate culture? And the theory is that when you allow people to be themselves, you get the best out of them. And the practice is what you're describing here, is you get the best out of people when they can show up and be as much themselves as they can at work.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Absolutely. And then just it's ultimately coming down to finding those people who love people and really want to make this a place that they don't just clock in and out, which is incredibly difficult in a fast service kind of model, but who really want to make this a home and really a place that they can not only connect with each other, but we see them developing these wonderful relationships with the customers as well. Mm-hmm. They see them, they know exactly what their order is, but beyond that, it's, how was your vacation last week, or how's your daughter's first day of school, and seeing kids grow up through there, that we've seen them being pushed in strollers when they first come in, and we then see them on their 6th birthday, and we know what kind of quiche they like to get, and I think that's a big part of it too, is really getting people who work with us to really love it as well and get something out of it, so when they leave work that day, they really have had their own experience. And I think really whatever you do, you're there 40 hours or more, you should love it. And we really try to, that's a big goal of ours, is how to make that atmosphere for the people who work for us. Because it translates, of course, to the customers. So in a business sense, great. Like they come back, they feel that. And then also we feel good about having that. So we have a lot of interesting conversations about, because he's kind of a socialist at heart. And about like...
Just at heart?
Yeah, or like actually, yeah. And about how to not go the route of just being turning tables, money monger, transactions, but how can we feel good about serving a product and like making some money while we do it, but not being greedy. How can we serve our community and serve the people who work for us and treat them fairly and feel good at the end of the day? Yeah.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Tony, you had something.
Yeah, well, our staff is our most important asset.
Yeah.
So, we make an effort to make sure that, not only are they happy, but, that they can sort of live in the city that is hard to live in.
Yeah, we're talking about costs.
Talking about costs, yeah. So it's like, it's a balancing act that it's not easy to do, but, that's, we work on it every day. Every day we wake up and how can we make, not only the business better, but how can we make it better, for our staff?
For sure. And I think one of the things that's interesting, just in listening to what you're talking about, and also we had a little pre-conversation about community and like no Wi-Fi, which I know is, kind of jarring. If you don't know your store, it's like your regular customers, you go in there, you expect internet, and there's not that internet. Not just creating a space for your employees like you talked about, but also creating a space that people come to become accustomed to.
Yeah, and ever since we opened Baked and Wired, many years ago, the thing was that a coffee house is supposed to be a community experience, right? Traditionally that's how coffee houses have been. People go there not only to consume the food and drink, but they go to have a conversation. They go to, find out who this other person is that's sitting next to me. That's a stranger that I may develop a relationship with. So really early on, we made a commitment not to have Wi-Fi. And, we felt backlash because of that.
Sure.
Both at Baked and Wired and especially here at Joint.
Yeah.
But, like Tessa was saying, sometimes you have to stay true to what your vision is. And, that's one of our visions, is to have a place where people can come and converse.
Yeah.
And there's the people who are upset we have Wi-Fi. I actually get so many people who come up and say, I'm so glad you don't have Wi-Fi. I can actually sit here and have a conversation with someone, or just be by myself and read a book without feeling like...
What's that?
Yeah. Sorry. Or like my iPhone. Without, you go into so many shops and that's just become the norm somehow, and you feel like you're interrupting a workspace or a library when you come in, and you can't really just be. There's so many pressures with technology already. We all have a mini computer attached to us at all times anyway. So to give people the opportunity and give them permission to have 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour to be disconnected in some way, in a lighter way, and then they, of course, go back to work, or then they're logged on, until they fall asleep in front of their computer. we try to look at that as a gift to give people, if you choose to look at it that way, that you really can use that time to have that conversation, to bring your mom in from out of town that you haven't talked to in a while, to have your kids, have your best friend, have a date. So we see that happen all the time, and it's been really cool seeing the transformation of people being really pissed off, especially a joint when we first opened, did not understand it, to I think actually really taking to it, and we hardly get the complaints anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
But I think it's to your point, like creating that space, right? And in coaching, we talk about all the time creating space for certain conversations, but creating actual space, as you've done with your places, it's a powerful thing to do. And it's something, it is hard, like you said, and I think when anyone starts a business or opens another location or goes for that expansion, there is always that, I'm not saying that this is happening here, but there's that imposter syndrome of saying, well, we're doing something really different, and is that okay, or will it work? But when you, like you said, you stick to whatever that gut intuition is or that driving passion, things typically tend to sort themselves out, and you all of a sudden find people.
I think so. If
You
it's
find a tribe,
authentic,
yeah.
I think people can smell that a mile away, especially this day and age. It's so easy to be pretty superficial and transparent, especially with social media. And so I really think people are super keen now on if something's pretty real and authentic feeling and done for the right reasons, or if it's just a marketing ploy or a sales pitch, or someone in New York designed, this experience from the outside that you have no idea who they are. And so I think that's been working for us, especially now. I think people are especially coming back to the idea of a coffee shop and to an intimate dining experience and to a little bit of privacy even. I think it's more important now than it has been in the last few years.
Oh, for sure.
I think. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And there's this, I see kind of like this like really interesting extremes. Big box, like high volume, mass chains, and then super boutique, like small, like just independent businesses, and then everything else in between kind of gets lost. You're either Starbucks or you're Baked and Wired.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're going for anything in between, people don't have the attention or patience for it.
Right.
Which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I think we agree. Middle of the road is a dangerous place to be if you're a business owner.
That's where the cars are.
Because that's where the cars are. Stay on the side, one and the other. But yeah, I mean, I just feel that. Not only us. There's a fair amount of places in DC that share, or not share, but more or less think like we do.
Sure.
Ingredients are important. The experience is important, and we're not unique to that. But we're true to it. Like other businesses in the city are. But yeah, I agree. I mean, we've made a decision not to be in the middle, and it's worked out for us, fairly well.
For sure.
Yeah.
So,
and that's come with just also never franchising, even though we've been given so many opportunities.
Sure.
Open in Dubai, open in New York, open in Atlanta, open in that. It's like it's been a lot of offers, and it's just been that's like you're saying, kind of getting to the middle ground. And we'd rather open a completely different place and serve a different kind of community and serve a different kind of product and be true in that way than try to replicate something that already exists and is very special to that area or to that neighborhood.
Yeah, to that place.
Yes, exactly.
When we were opening Joint, people thought we were insane not to offer cupcakes, for example. Right? I can't think of anybody that thought that it would be successful.
Sure.
Right? But, we were not knee-jerk people. We had thought this out. We had, we're clear in our minds as to where we want to go.
Yeah.
We wanted to go with Joint, and one of them was that we didn't want to replicate Baked and Wired. We could borrow things from Baked and Wired, but we didn't want to, sell cupcakes. So it's worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, the bread's delicious.
Yeah.
I've had some very good thick slabs of sourdough with almond butter on it. And let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Tasty.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't understand the distinction between Baked and Wired and a baked joint, then you just have to go visit them if you're in DC or if you're visiting DC. One thing that's interesting at this table and the conversation we're having now is that, we're talking about a family business now, right? So I know you were probably integral in the conception of Baked and Wired when you were 10, 11, 12.
That's what I think. Yeah.
But I'd love to hear about that. I'm so I do coaching. I'm in partnership with my mom, and family businesses are kind of in my circle. And I'd love to hear what that's been like for you, Tony, kind of seeing someone coming up in your life and then into your business.
Literally.
Well, we never thought that we would work as a team, family team. That wasn't, we never even thought about it. By we, I mean my wife and myself. All this came from, Zach and Tessa, that they wanted to participate, in the business. And, in that sense, it was easy because they wanted to do it.
Sure.
It wasn't like we pressured them to be part of this. Needless to say, we're happy then, and we're extremely happy now. It's not only because they're assets to the business, but we have, as parents, we have a relationship with our kids that we recognize that the great majority of parents don't have. That closeness of working with somebody, except for you, of course. But you know what I'm talking about. It's a different kind of relationship, especially when, everybody's an adult, right? It's not that traditional, father-daughter relationship. It's a mature thing. That's very satisfying, and we're really glad that it's happened this way.
That's awesome. That's cool. What made you, Tessa, say, I want in a little bit more than just being, a kid behind the counter?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the stores. My first jobs were there. I've done pretty much everything there is in food service, making the cupcake papers, making the dog biscuits, working behind the counter, being a barista, washing dishes, everything. So when I went off to college, I worked in other shops. I studied psychology. I was kind of looking at pursuing that master's program, and I was just kind of torn. I didn't really feel like my heart was in it, but I remember that my heart was always in taking those summer shifts or working when I was at home. And so I decided to give it a shot and really see what small business was really all about and really dive into it full time. And I gave myself a year to see if I liked it, basically, and if not, I would just apply to grad school and get on with it. And here I am, over 6 years later. And so I tell people I just got my PhD in small business.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
And it's been the ultimate education to really been given the opportunity and the trust to take on more responsibilities than if I was just, some schmo walking off the street, and really getting that intimate knowledge of how you run a business. And then also being able to come in from a younger generation standpoint of how we can bring fresh ideas into the business as well, and be really integral in that, especially with Baked, which is about to hit 19 years. How do you keep a bakery cool that long? And
Tony
I think
can tell you.
and I think it's all of us really working together to do that. It takes the expertise and the knowledge and the years behind knowing how really what it's like to have a bakery, which is, I think, a whimsical idea for a lot of people.
Sure.
But then also bringing in my naive probably ideas and my whimsical ideas to keep it fresh and keep it fun and keep it exciting and young.
Yeah, but that's what's made us survive today. I mean, we are who we are today because of that infusion of fresh ideas. Of us, saying, we want to cater to the young people. And,
we're coming.
And you're coming.
And we're not even the youngest generation.
I know, and now I'm old, I feel like. So
older.
We need to get the next
If you're old, what does it make Tony? Let's just say you're old. You're older than some people. He's older than some people.
I'm definitely not a young
I'm not sure if I'm older. I'm the oldest. But yeah, I think that one of the things that we work on hard is keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
It's not easy when you're running a business to, be making changes all the time. It's a risky thing because people tend to, just get into that comfort zone and just sort of live there because it's comfortable. But, I think that what Tessa and Zach and our staff, which is really young to begin with, brings us that energy of youth and ideas of youth. And, we try to implement them.
That's great. What I love right now in listening to you all talk about your businesses and the experience that you have with each other and with your staff is that it sounds like it's developed over time, obviously, and it's a manifestation of personal values and beliefs, but it's a lot about what people talk about as far as creating culture. And one of the really interesting conversations that's happening that I see is this intergenerational conversation, right? Like there are people who have a ton of experience but aren't keeping up with sort of the newness of the world, but there are also people that are newer that are naive or, aren't respecting or understanding that there is a lot of value in well-worn wisdom.
Yeah.
I mean, just straight up.
Absolutely.
And having that in your business, and I have it in mine as well, I say Leia is my biggest strategic advantage.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can talk to each other and push each other, but also balance each other,
right.
When we're working with other people. And from a business concept and brand and all that stuff, you cater to a large, wide range of people. You could argue everyone.
Yeah, and we try to figure out what our demographics are, and it's like everybody, like you said. I mean, we have older people and younger people, and it makes us feel good.
Yeah,
we can do that. But again, I can take care of the old part, and she takes care of the young part.
Your demographic are people that love a good cup of coffee, an iced tea, and something baked.
That too. Food is good. We forgot about the food.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the food. The food is good, so that helps a lot.
Well, this will say something. Every now and then, I don't know if you experience this with food or drinks. You'll have an experience with a type of food or a drink, and it kind of like gets rotated into your regular order. And the hibiscus mint iced tea at Baked and Wired, when I had it when I helped open the Apple store in Georgetown, so I was going there a lot more regularly. And the moment I had that, every place I go, I'm like, do you have hibiscus mint iced tea? It might not be the same, but like, can I get some of that?
Yeah. That's been on the menu since
we opened.
Yeah.
19 years.
First day we opened. Our neighbor was, or both of our neighbors were like the owners of Sushiko.
Oh, okay.
And they're the ones who, up in Glover Park.
Yeah. Good spot.
Bakaya now.
Yeah.
But they were the ones who sort of turned us on to this hibiscus mint. And the guy that sells it is a Sudanese guy out of Austin.
Oh, wow.
Who, at the time, I don't know if he's doing that now, but he was bringing in hibiscus from Sudan and mixing it with Texas mint.
Wow.
And that's how...
I mean, it was good.
It is really good.
Not unsweetened, like good flavors.
Oh, yeah.
Fun
That's
color.
the hangover cure. We tell our kids, you have a big cup of that, and you're good to go for your shift.
Funny.
Yeah.
Well, what's the genesis? You have Baked and Wired in Georgetown, right? And what started this? Let's do another place. How did that come up and evolve?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we had been approached and we had looked at other places throughout the year, or locations, what I mean by that. And this one came up, the K Street location, which, I don't know why it clicked. It just felt, right. And at the time, this was all parking lots, and, that 295 here it's
a mess.
It's a mess, right? There wasn't much around here, but it just felt well. Felt like, we should be here. And so we made that move, without really knowing that it would develop into what it is today, which is like a high density.
Yeah. I mean, we're sitting underneath a large apartment building.
And more going up.
Yeah.
And office buildings going up. So, I think it was more that this location felt right. And at the time, we didn't know if it was going to be a Baked and Wired or something else. And all that sort of like developed, by itself. But it was more like this neighborhood felt right for us. And that's what made it happen.
And you just leaned into it.
We just went in, all in.
And
scary.
Scary?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, well, no, it was scary because we're doing a concept that, it's not what we do. Like, for example, the bread program.
Yeah.
Once we decided that we were going to do something like this, we had to say, well, how do we start a bread program? East Coast is not out of culture of eating bread. We just don't. It's a West Coast thing.
Yeah, we're not SF.
That's right. We're not SF. So, we went to New York, not much bread there. Yeah, there were some bread places, but for the size of the city, not that much. But, on the West Coast, it's different.
Yeah.
So we had to develop a bread program a year before we opened because we had to make sure it was right. And, so, bringing all those things in, something that's very expensive to run, a bread program, changing the concept, moving into a neighborhood that it's all parking lots and no buildings. Yeah, it was scary.
It's expensive to run equipment and investing up front, everything.
The bread programs don't tend to be profitable. And they sort of work when you make it part of your business. Like all the sandwiches that we make, we use our own bread.
Right.
That's what, makes it, a little bit more palatable as a business. But, that's the main reason you don't see bread bakeries. It's just that, when you come to the bottom line, they're really hard to sustain.
Especially in places with high rents.
Especially with places where high rents. Yeah. So you look at, D.C. and there's 3-4 places that are in the city. That,
Bread First.
Bread First, one in the alley.
Yeah, and there's one that sells out of, was it Leon Bakery that sells out of Union?
So there's not, for, metropolitan area of 6 million people, that's not that much.
No.
But it's because, going back to what you had said, either you are small or you're really big. And in the middle, it doesn't survive.
Yeah.
You just can't make it work.
What was that? And I think this is always interesting, this idea of building teams. So you had this business in Georgetown, and you had obviously, you had a rhythm, you had a team of people, and you're going into this new location and a new industry with bread. What was it like building the team? How much crossover was there? Did you bring people over? And also what was making that? I'm assuming you hired a bread maker.
Yeah, we did. We had to go all the way and find someone in Montana.
Montana?
Yes.
That's not the West Coast.
That is, but he was a good bread baker. He still is. He's still with us.
Okay, great.
But yeah, everybody that was working on the bread program more or less came from outside the city.
Yeah.
And in the 5 years that we've been doing this, we have a training program, so we develop it. But finding bread bakers, it's just hard to find.
Yeah.
They just don't exist.
It's a craft.
It's a craft.
Yeah.
And, there's so much, it's so complicated and sophisticated, so much chemistry.
Yeah.
So much touch and feel.
Yeah.
It's you have to be an artist to be able to make good bread.
And a scientist.
And a scientist at the same time. It's it's tough, but,
But you got lines on Saturday and Sunday.
We love bread.
That's what I love is there are a couple businesses in the city still. You have Bad Saint, you have Call Your Mother.
Yeah.
There are always lines, right? And I can't underscore how important it is. And you all are sharing this. When you really hone into things that you love or you obsess about and you just give yourself to it, stuff happens. And people feel it and they can see it. Right?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Definitely.
I think that, going back to what Tessa said about being authentic, the businesses you mentioned, they're authentic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's no doubt about it. People like that. People just don't want the bullshit of whatever, They want to feel that, this is a real place. And
yeah. The BS meter is very honed in 2019, going into 2020.
Really is. And we're, I'm born and raised in D.C. You've been here,
40 years.
100 years ish.
100.
And chances are, if we're needing something, we're looking to the city.
Yeah.
That was the example with the bread. We had nowhere to get bread. We were getting Safeway bread.
Right.
My mom was cooking these amazing meals every night.
Right.
We have all these great ingredients coming in. We have Whole Foods now. We have all this stuff. But we were getting styrofoam bread from the supermarket.
Worst.
Yeah,
Worse.
and so we're like, if we want good bread, I'm sure other people want good bread. And same with all the other concepts. If we want this, and we are really from this area, and we know because
you've been all over town. You've been looking for
here.
it. You say something to your friend, and your friend's like, "Oh my God, yeah, totally!
Yeah,
it would be cool."
It's not like thinking what other people want. It's what you really want, and trusting that other people want that as well.
Steve Jobs famously said, "If he had asked people what they want, they wouldn't have said the iPod."
That's right.
He was right.
100%.
They just wouldn't have conceptualized it. Not that people aren't capable of it, but when you're living in the context of your world, sometimes it's hard to think outside that. And, because you've done retail and food before, you had a little bit more context.
Yeah. You have to know what they want without them knowing that they want it yet. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What, and now we're right next door to a bake joint at La Betty.
Yes.
Dinner.
Yes.
What do you know about dinner?
We eat at home. I don't know. I mean, Teresa is a wonderful baker and she's a wonderful cook at the same time. And, we had sort of run out with the baking stuff with joint and bake. So, the next step for us was to have a sit-down place.
Yeah. And where we're sitting right now.
Where we're sitting right now.
In a gorgeous booth, by the way. Unbelievable.
Thank you. With a big microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a natural progression that if we wanted to do something else, that, a sit-down experience would be, the next step. So, that was very challenging too, because it's not the same thing to cook at home.
Right.
To cook for,
a
bunch of people. So that's been a learning experience, just like joint was a learning experience. And these learning experiences take, 1-2 years to sort out.
Yeah.
And, that's where we're at right now. We feel comfortable, but there's still stuff that, needs sorted out with, what we're doing. But, we'll get there.
I think it's a great detail. It's a learning experience, and it takes 1 or 2 years to sort out. Yeah. There's a lot of emphasis with young entrepreneurs, and you probably had the benefit of seeing entrepreneurs that have been through this, right? But like this, it's got to happen quickly. Like it's only going to take 6 months, or I just need to do one thing and then everything else will fall into place, But it does. It takes time. It takes iteration. It takes mistakes. It takes bad hires. It takes good hires that go somewhere else and like break your heart. Like it takes all sorts of stuff to get to a formula that starts to work, let alone a formula that has people lining up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a process that requires an extreme amount of patience, right? And self-confidence, right? You need to feel that even if things aren't going that well, that you can see it down the road happening well. So, between patience, self-confidence, and adhering to a process, chances are that it'll work out if you're capitalized.
If you're capitalized. Yeah, someone, I forget the gentleman's name, I'll put it in the show notes, but he tweeted, there's a lot of stats about business failure in the first 1 to 3 years, but not about business success in not highly capitalized businesses that last 3 to 10 years or have been growing for 3 to 10 years. Yeah. And the longer that you can sustain and put time and energy and resources into something that isn't a sinking ship, your rate of success is going to increase.
Right.
I mean, it just will. It may not be a quote-unquote unicorn or pop-off, right? Like, Baked and Wired was in Georgetown probably for some time before it was an insane hotspot magnet.
Yeah, I mean, it took 5 or 6 years, to get there. But, it paid off, right?
Yeah.
And we just kept on learning. We don't come from a food service background, either Teresa or myself.
Tessa does.
She does.
I do.
But at the beginning, none of us. So it was all new stuff. I mean, it's like...
How does Zach feel, by the way? Tony, Tessa, and Teresa, and Z?
About his name choice.
TTT and Z?
Yeah.
He's the odd man.
Every now and then there are families that have a letter, a letter rhythm, and then there's one person out. I'm always like, what?
We call him Tazak.
Okay, good. What's the, oh my God, I'm forgetting it. What's the Greek sauce?
Tzatziki.
Yeah.
No one could pronounce.
Yeah, tzatziki.
That would have been a good name.
Yeah. That's great.
It works for that.
There you go. So what kind of food, because I love food, what are we working with at La Betty at the moment?
Yeah, we're doing all really home-cooked American cuisine. My mom's background is she's from Ohio and had a lot of German-Irish roots. So it's really food that she would have growing up, which is really American kind of cozy food, but kind of blended with how she's evolved in her cooking life. It's a little bit more elevated, comfort kind of food in a lot of ways. So you can get a really good burger, but you can also get a really wonderful roasted cauliflower head with mole sauce. So really going back to the idea of just trying to have an experience that we can serve all types of people and their food needs, but coming back to just feeling like you just got a hug from your food.
Oh, yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to this space real quick because, this is probably an influence of my dad. My dad is unofficially, he was a naval architect. He built a boat in the 70s and 80s with his dad, although he's not a trained architect. And then the boat's been around since then, and my grandparents lived on it for a decade. So it's water tested. And then he built the house that I grew up in. Wow. And so like when I go into a space and you can see like the wood, like this is solid. This is not like, plaster and just like plastic chairs. Like it's a really well thought out, and like the space feels warm. And it's cold outside.
Yeah.
But it feels warm.
But it feels
just
warm.
like visually and physically.
Yeah.
That's a great, that kind of, when you said the hug, like you can feel it in the space also.
Yeah.
So we, Zach and myself, we designed the space, and we wanted it to feel that way. We wanted it to feel, cozy, to have booths that didn't feel like you were sitting, in a place that, was not friendly.
Yeah.
So, wood offers so much warmth.
Yeah.
Darker colors offer warmth.
Yeah.
Carpets.
Yeah.
And, dim lighting.
Mm-hmm.
So, we wanted to marry the space to, the home type food that, Teresa was cooking, and make it all a cozy experience.
That's
even
awesome.
when it's cold outside.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I got a couple layers on.
Yeah.
I try not to wear my winter coat until at least Thanksgiving.
Good for
because
you.
I was in Chicago for long enough where like it was like that's just not you got to hold out.
Yeah.
But what kind of just thinking about these three places and where things are, at the moment, I'd love to hear, and I know listeners appreciate this, and I know it can be hard sometimes to talk about. What are some of the challenges that have come up that you've worked through? If you want to share one or a couple, I'm sure there's been more than one.
Wow.
I'm sure there have been more.
You're hurling tough questions.
Talk about interesting things.
Yeah. Well, we've had I don't know. I think one of our challenges as a business, right, is staffing, is finding the right people, to work at the business and have them feel that they're part of it and that they're happy. We've had a bunch of challenges. Tessa got almost punched in the face when we opened Joint.
Twice.
Someone twice. Yeah.
Same person or different person?
No, different people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's better or worse, but
Yeah.
So that's how rough this neighborhood was.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like
were you cashless then, or
were we cashless?
Here?
Like
No.
cashless? No, we had cash.
No. Like no register, like no cash registers.
No, we
You did, yeah.
and we still do. That's an important thing for us. by the way.
Accessibility.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
accessibility.
100%.
Not everybody has a credit card.
Yeah, actually, lots of people.
Lots of people don't.
Yeah.
And we feel like it'd be much easier for us to run our business without cash.
Sure.
But what about all those people who don't have a credit card? Why shouldn't they have a cup of coffee?
I mean, I think about that even when I'm walking on the street. Like I like to give people a little bit of money here and there.
Yeah.
I never have cash on me.
Yeah.
And I think about that because like everywhere I go, takes credit cards, and so like I don't even have that like in my pocket.
Yeah.
And it's changed the dynamic of my relationship with people on the street.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I never thought of it that way.
I mean, for me,
Yeah.
some people are opposed to that.
Yeah.
But like, it's just like, just even having the ability to, put that out there when you connect with someone.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our cash tips have gone down so much, but our credit card tips are
Yeah.
getting, up and up and up and up.
People have less cash.
Yeah.
Or carry less cash.
Yeah.
But there's a chunk of the population that's
Yeah.
all they have is cash.
100%.
So, it'll be unfair not to give them the opportunity to, be
Participate.
Part of our, participate.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. I think, and I believe a lot of people don't consider that or realize that. Again, if you're in a position of privilege and access,
Right.
and you got an Apple Watch and an iPhone and mobile payments, all this stuff, you're like, oh yeah, cashless is it is much more convenient.
Right.
But it it does remove that whole segment,
Yeah.
right? And there was a bunch of stuff in Williamsburg over the last several years because so many businesses have gone
Williamsburg,
cashless.
New York? Or?
Yeah, New York.
Not Virginia.
No.
Not colonial.
I think they legally have to stick with cash for authentic reasons. But Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
But you can go blocks
Right.
with just cashless, and people have signs on their doors. And one claim is security of the employees, which I think is important. And I'm sure you know that more than your average person.
Yeah.
But there is that other element, and I'm harping on it because I want people to remember.
Yeah.
Well, for us, our business, the responsibility of owning a business comes with a social responsibility, to be part of the city, to be part of the community. So we take these things like the cash, which a lot of people don't think about, or they don't know about, together with a bunch of other stuff that are social issues that affect, our community. And, for us, that's part of your responsibility. If you want to own a business, you should have a social conscience and think about all these things that normally you wouldn't think, right? Like, easy not to take cash, but what about the other guy?
I love that. I mean, it really digs into the theme that I get in this conversation, which is like attention to detail and like thinking about things more holistically. I mean, from ingredients to not trying to repeat something because, it's never going to be the same as your first location. So you got these 3 different locations, to cash because of accessibility, and how you treat your people and how you think about your business, attention to detail. And I feel like that's a great closing spot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I really have appreciated having both of you here.
Oh, thank you.
And for you having me at Labetti. Thank you for being on the Founder's Mind.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
It's been a pleasure.
What's the best way? If we got listeners in DC, what's the best way for them to check out your spots? You got Instagrams, websites?
Oh, yeah. You can check out our Instagrams at Baked and Wire DC, at A Bake Joint, at Labetti DC. Check out our websites, Facebook, Twitter. Hey, just come on in.
Yeah,
just come and say
come on
hey.
in.
And you got to try for yourself. You can only eat through your eyes so much on the social media feed.
Exactly. There's nothing like being there in person. And if you're walking by and there's a line, you're at the right spot. It's one of the two.
You're at the right spot. And I'll say we crank
fast.
you
It does.
through.
It does move
It's
fast.
scary, but just hold in there.
And at Baked and Wired, you got the bakery line, you got the coffee line.
Right.
That was a good operational
Undercover,
update.
yeah.
We want to make it confusing, so that's what we do.
Keep you on your toes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Founder's Mind. Check back soon for Season 2, sponsored by Upside Business Travel. Learn more about Upside at upside.com. If you like what you're hearing, we'd love your support. Sign up to be a funder of The Founder's Mind. To support the show, you can go to the show notes or head to thefoundersmind.com and click the link Funder. To make sure you don't miss any awesome wisdom from guests and stay up to date on the most recent episodes of the show, be sure to visit thefoundersmind.com. You can also follow along on social at The Founder's Mind. Last but not least, thank you to Roy Matz for the music on the show and his dope editing skills that make The Founder's Mind possible. Until next time, take care.
What you learn, what you get is what you be. In a world full of noise, hard to find that clarity. To try to lead subtly, never full of vanity. And try to change something small or try to change humanity. Power forward through the dark, Founder's Mind is what you see.